guys. This week on Community Chat, Hagen Nares, PLC, truck wreck and brain injury lawyers, is speaking with Raina Bayas, the owner of the Bayas firm. Raina is a powerhouse advocate for Colorado consumers. She stands toe to toe with dealerships, brokers, and large companies on behalf of the community. Her specialties are auto dealer fraud, car warranties, lemon law, and used car issues. Raina has a fascinating journey that makes her relatable, credible, and authentic. We are here to discuss her journey, what it's like to be a client of the Bias firm, and a trading tidbit for the community. Welcome, Raina.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to share you with everybody. You are a great friend of mine. I love you to pieces, and you have just been a wealth of knowledge to me about lemon law and other car issues that members of the community may be dealing with, and they may have a remedy that they don't even know about. So you are such a great resource. And what makes you really authentic and credible is because you have this great backstory of how you became a consumer advocate. And so I'd love for you to just share your journey. How did you get here to start the Raina the Bias Law?
Um, so thank you for saying all those kind things about me. When I look back at my journey, you always feel like success or your trajectory needs to be in some sort of straight line. And I can honestly tell you that mine was all over the place in circles and trying to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. So I'm going to start with law school because I'm not going to take you back to the day that I was born, right? So I'm going to start with law school. Go to law school, and I know that I want to help people. I just don't even know how, right? And I don't get scholarships to law school, so I'm paying everything out of pocket, and I end up feeling that burden and going with a large firm when I leave law school. I got good grades in law school, and it was kind of the thing that everybody was doing back in 2006. It was like, you got to go work for a big firm,
Yep.
pay your dues, etc. So I go and I work for this big firm, and I am representing companies in products liability cases. So we're talking about representing an airbag and seatbelt manufacturer against people whose family members have died because of some sort of defect in that seatbelt. So you can imagine, I'm trying to help people, and yet I'm on this huge corporation side and working, nonstop. It was very grueling work, and I'm just not feeling that purpose. But I'm really getting really, really good legal education, right? Because the standard that you have to meet in order to work for a big law firm, I mean, your legal product has to be top notch, perfect, to the point where partners are yelling at you, everyone's stressed out, and it's this whole thing. It's a very interesting culture. So I do that for 3 years, and I'm just completely burned out. I do it for another year at another law firm. I'm still completely burned out. And I'm like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I've been, vacations are a wash because I have to work normally on vacations, and I just don't feel that purpose. So I'm leaving. I'm leaving the money behind, and I'm going and I'm doing my own eat, pray, love thing, right? Elizabeth Gilbert came out with that book. And I think it was a couple years before I actually left the law firm. I was like, screw it, I'm going to Bali. So I pack up all my stuff. I have this, great apartment in LA, 6 blocks from the beach. Pack up all my stuff, and I'm like, I'm out of here. I go to Asia, and I'm like, look, I'm going to go and I'm going to volunteer and live in different parts of Asia, right? So I go to Bali. I can't find a volunteer job, but I get a lot of massages. Okay, fine. Do that for a month, whatever. Then I go to, I think I go to Cambodia after that. And I volunteer at an orphanage, and I do some work for them. Meanwhile, I'm also teaching yoga to like the orphanage kids. And it was amazing. And it was so much fun. And I would walk to the orphanage from my hotel, and I did that for about a month and a half. Then I go to Nepal and I trek to Everest Base Camp, and I'm doing all of this stuff, right? And this whole time, I'm 30 something years old, and I'm like, okay, I went to law school, I have these bills, and yet I'm over here in Asia. Am I really finding myself? So I'm doing this. Yeah, I do yoga teacher training in India, and I come back and I'm like, well, what did I learn from all of that? Well, when I was in Nepal, I started volunteering for an organization that worked with victims of human trafficking. And I absolutely loved it. I thought that I was just really giving back to the community. Um, I really felt for these women who were part of this human trafficking circle. And so I was like, I want to try to do something like that. So I start looking online at different human trafficking organizations, and one of the bigger ones came up, and it was in Colorado, Denver, Colorado. And I had never thought about moving to Colorado at all. So in the while I was gone, oddly enough, my brother moves to Colorado and my best friend from law school. So I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna when I come back, I'm gonna go back to LA, but let me just first go to Colorado and see what's going on over here. I get over here and I start working for um, Rocky Mountain Victims Law Center, and they worked with victims of violent crimes. And I absolutely loved it. I actually started volunteering for them, and then they gave me a job after that, and I fell in love with the whole process. Just giving victims a voice in the criminal system, it was so important. And because of that, I felt like I wanted to do more. Then I became a prosecutor. So I was a prosecutor for 5 years. I loved that, but it was also a very grueling, a grueling job. I got a ton of trial experience, and I was like, you know what? I had 2 kids. I was commuting, and I'm like, I need something more in my life. Even though this was really, really great, I need something more. So I left that, spent 2 years doing real estate, which was great. And then I was like, you know what? I really want to go back to helping people, but I also want to do something more, right? Not, I wanted to be able to make money. I wanted to help people, and I wanted to give a voice, but not in the criminal system anymore. I was kind of done with that part of it. And that's when I got my first lemon law case. I get this woman, she has a brand new Lexus, and it just keeps breaking down. I mean, the thing just doesn't work, right? The battery keeps dying all the time. And I think she was pregnant at the time, or she had a kid at the time. And she would just get stranded randomly. She would go to work and it wouldn't start or anywhere. And so I started working on her case. I just got really involved in lemon law. And I realized that, these manufacturers or dealerships, the people that they take advantage of, the those are the women, people of color, people that they don't believe are highly educated, that kind of thing. And so you see, them trying to take advantage of these people, and that's the voice that I want to give to. So I was like, all right, that's not happening on my watch. Let me go up against these manufacturers. And I was kind of primed for that because I was so used to representing manufacturers, right? So used to representing the larger companies that I knew the tricks that the attorneys would use. And so I kind of used that to the consumer's advantage, and pushed up back against the manufacturer, pushed back against the dealerships, used the trial experience that I got from the DA's office. Um, and so that's what I do. And I absolutely love it. I love what I'm doing. And I really feel like I'm helping people and the community.
Well, I think that's amazing, and I think that there's a common thread to the journey, even though it's wiggled and gone to all different places. But the common thread is that you've been a consumer advocate from day one. You've just been really adamant about helping those that have been taken advantage of from someone that has more authority, more power, and it tends, in this case, to be these big, large manufacturing industries. The fact of us, can Lexus be liable for what has happened? Stuff like that is where you really come in to play, and I think that's fantastic. And so the question then is, obviously your background has just given you this credibility, this authenticity about you. But there's other lemon law attorneys out there, but they might not have the knowledge that you have. They might not have the background you have. What sets the Bayas law firm apart? What is about the Bayas law firm that will um, set you apart from other lemon law um, uh, firms? And also, what can we expect if we're a client of yours?
I think the most important thing that I took away from working at Big Law, and that I feel is a little bit unfair for smaller consumers, is that in Big Law, the level of your legal acumen, the work product that you had to do had to be perfect all the time. Whereas I feel like, why should that only be why should that only be slated for large companies who can afford it? Why can't that level of legal services be for somebody who is a consumer, who is the little guy, and fight on that level, right, up against these larger corporations? And so the biggest thing that I try to instill in all of my employees and just the whole culture of the firm is, we are going to give the best, the highest quality legal product by far, right? we are checking everything twice. We are looking, we're doing the research. We are putting the time and effort in, and it doesn't matter that you can't pay us what we could have potentially gotten paid from the manufacturer. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're getting solid legal representation at a very, very high level because you deserve it and you're worth it, sort of thing. So for me, that's you know what we're kind of bringing to the table for consumers, and it kind of levels the playing field. And another thing is, I get it. I'm a brown woman. You think when I walk into a dealership that they're going to treat me the same way that they do, a man? No, absolutely not. I've had dealerships mess around with the financing paperwork. I've had them try to overcharge me. I've had a service shop put in water instead of the windshield wiper fluid that is antifreeze, so that I almost actually got into a car accident. I mean, I had all of those things because they're looking at me and they're like, oh, especially when I was younger, they were like, oh, here's just a young brown person who doesn't understand, the way the world works. And so I've felt that. And so I get the frustration that my clients are going through, that they don't really have a voice, that they don't feel like they have control. And we're here to kind of put that control back into our clients' hands and say, you have a voice, we hear what you're saying, and we will fight for you, sort of thing. So I think it's like both of those two things that really make us the powerhouse in lemon law. Like that's why we are the lemon law attorneys in Colorado.
I think that's fantastic. And that goes into a segment I want to talk about, which is a training tidbit. And that is, I don't think many people know that there are avenues to get reimbursement or to actually bring claims for common things that happen to our vehicles. And so I was wondering if you could just do a training tidbit for members of the community that really don't have any base knowledge with regards to lemon law, car warranty issues, your different topic areas. Just a primer for us to know and be aware of what's going on. Is something there that I should talk to Raina about? And what recourse do I have?
Right. Okay. So the way that warranty law works is that when you buy a car, there's no takebacks, right? There's no return policy on a vehicle. You can't have it for 30 days and give it back and say, what? We don't like it anymore. So what manufacturers do is like, okay, we know that you don't get a return policy. However, we'll give you this warranty, repair and replace. And now you're assured that if something happens to your vehicle, we're going to repair and replace it. Okay, great. So let's say you have a vehicle and this is the actual case that I recently dealt with. You have a vehicle and the Bluetooth keeps dropping. It just keeps dropping and your navigation keeps going out. Okay. And it's very disruptive, especially while you're driving, right? When the navigation goes out and you're trying to get somewhere and you're fumbling and everyone's in the car screaming, the kids are in the back screaming. So it's very disruptive. So you go and you take it to a dealership or the service shop, the authorized service shop for the manufacturer. Okay. And they're like, oh, okay, this just needs a software update. Okay, great. Whatever. I spent a day, having to deal with this. No big deal. Get back in the car, start going. A few weeks later, it happens again. And you're like, oh, my goodness. What am I supposed to do now? All right. So you go back to the dealership and you say, look, this is happening again. They're like, oh, okay. Leave it for 5 days. And, maybe we just need a new part and yada, yada. Okay. So you leave it for 5 days. They come back. They're like, oh, you need a new battery. They switch out the battery. You go back in your car. Now you're driving. 2 weeks later, it happens again. And now you're starting to get really frustrated because it's very disruptive. You got kids that you need to take to school. You don't have time to keep going back and forth to the dealership. And you also can't just have a loaner all the time where you're switching car seats around or it's hard to have a loaner, especially in the winter in Colorado, because your loaner might not have the snow tires that you need to actually get around. So you go back to the dealership. This time they take it for 10 days. The question is, how often at this point do you just have to keep going back to the dealership? At what point can you actually say to the manufacturer, hey, guys, this is a serious issue. You're not fixing it. And instead of just repairing it, I need a replacement vehicle, right? That's when we get involved, right? So just think about the situation that you have. And if it's starting to get disruptive in your life, if you've been there, 4 more times for the same issue, this is actually the law in Colorado. It's a presumption that if a vehicle has been in the shop 4 or more times within the first year for the same exact issue, it's presumption that there is some sort of breach of warranty. Or if it's been in the shop for more than 30 days, business days, I should say, there's a presumption that there's some sort of breach of warranty. So at this point, you can go back to the manufacturer and start dealing with the manufacturer and saying, here are some of the remedies I want. I want either a replacement of this vehicle. Okay. I want you to give me cash damages to deal with this whole situation. I'll keep the vehicle, but look, this has lowered the value of the vehicle by 20%. So give me, cash damages for this. Or replace the vehicle, repurchase it or replace it. So there's some of the things that can happen and that you can kind of push the manufacturer into doing depending on whether or not the issue itself is substantial. And when I talk about substantial impairment, I am talking about the Bluetooth dropping or the navigation going out. When you can link it to safety, that is considered substantial. Okay. So if it's something along those lines, or if the charger on an electric car doesn't work, that's a substantial impairment. And so those are the types of things that manufacturers are going to say, okay, let's figure out a remedy. I will tell you that you can do this yourself. You can try to go to the manufacturer yourself. I've heard very mixed results on what actually happens when a consumer goes to the manufacturer. Sometimes the manufacturers do give that replacement. Sometimes they don't. Okay. So it really depends. You might want to try it yourself. And then if you get to a stopping point, get an attorney involved, or you might want to get an attorney involved in the first place. There's an attorney fee shifting provision in the warranty statutes. So manufacturers are used to paying for attorney's fees if you are somehow successful on this case. So if they give you a settlement, they are very used to writing that check for attorney's fees as well. And it's something that we always ask for. So you're not necessarily going to be out money just because you hire an attorney, and you might get a better result if you do hire an attorney. The one thing I would say, though, keep in mind, there is a 1-year statute of limitations. And what that means is that you have to file a case in the first year of that ownership. Otherwise, you lose your lemon law claim. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have any claims. You may still have claims. There are federal protections as well that come into play that are longer than the Colorado lemon law. I will say that Colorado lemon law has one of the shortest statute of limitations. So just keep that in mind. I'm giving you a very kind of broad overview of lemon law. There's actually a lot of other specifics involved. So this is just general education. It might even be shorter depending on the facts of your case. So if you are having this issue, I think the best thing to do is just call a lemon law attorney, me preferably, but call a lemon law attorney, just get your initial consultation and make sure that you're not pushed up against some sort of deadline where you're going to lose some of these claims.
I think that's fantastic. And one of the important things is you really want to make sure that someone's an expert in this like you are. So when you're calling a lemon law attorney, you really want to vet them and ask them, are they even based in Colorado? Is it just a 1-800 number and it's a national firm? No, Raina's actually local. She lives right here in the community and is super involved. And then she'll know the local dealerships and maybe she has clients that have dealt with them before. And then also just test them on the knowledge that Raina just provided. Do they actually know what they're talking about? Do they know the statute of limitations? All of those. And all of these are going to prove that Raina really is the expert that we've noticed she is. I really appreciate you, Raina. You've given us so much valuable information. If people want to contact you, what's the best way to get involved in either events that you're hosting or reach you on your website? What's just the best way to contact you?
I would say either call or just look at the website and sign up for an initial consultation. We do free 15-minute initial consultation. So the way to get to the website is the Bayas. So it's BAYAS firm.com, or you can call 720-552-6062, and we'll get you signed up for initial consultation so you can at least speak to somebody knowledgeable.
That's fantastic. And we'll include all your information in the show notes. Thank you, Raina, for everything. You are the source of information when I have questions about this for my own clients and members of the community. And thank you just for sharing some information.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.